I'm pleased today to be joined by Clyde Nichols and MartyUpNorth, two of my favorite podcasters, Canadian content creators. So Clyde is known as ClydeDoSomething online. He's an auto mechanic by day and a political commentator at night. And then Marty goes by MartyUpNorth. He's been a professional engineer by training for over 40 years. And I guess he's now a podcaster. So gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, happy to be here. Actually, Clyde and I it feels like me and Clyde just got off his show. We were on till last night, midnight or something like that. So
Far too late, far too late.
lots to talk about in this country. That's why we're on. I mean, there's like 2025 is off to a crazy start.
It certainly is. And it seems like, things change like every day. Like some days I feel like, okay, Polyev has taken back control of the narrative and he is leading things and he's doing really well. And then a poll will come out that shows a liberal majority. And it's totally every day is something totally different. So let's start with this news that we are seeing from Canadian press, and CTV is reporting that Mark Carney will be sworn in as Canada's 24th Prime Minister tomorrow, along with his cabinet. So Carney, Governor General Mary Simon's office has confirmed that the swearing-in ceremony of Prime Minister and his cabinet will officially take place at Rideau Hall at 11 a.m. Eastern in Ottawa. So that's that. I mean, there was some rumors circulating that he wouldn't officially be sworn in, that he would call an election right away, or that maybe he would try to prolong his time and do this later. But it looks like it's going to happen tomorrow. Now, I guess the question is, do you think he will trigger an election right away, or do you think he'll try to govern, try to pull in Jagmeet Singh and continue to maintain some kind of a coalition? Marty, I'll go to you first.
Well, that's the million-dollar question. If the Liberals definitely got a bounce in the last little while with him, with their leadership campaign, with him getting chosen. Some people question the polls. They always say that the polls are paid for. Sure, they're paid for, but they do show a trend, and I do believe that the Liberals have narrowed that gap in the popular vote. So I think Trump. I think Carney's a one-trick pony myself. I think he's being paraded as an economist, with a resume, Bank of Canada, Bank of England. So he's a one-trick pony. You can see that because they're not making him speak on other issues. He's not talking about whatever social issues or anything like that. So because he's a one-trick pony and he's getting a boost from Trump right now, he needs to strike while the polls are hot. And I think I hope he misreads the polls, and I hope he calls an election. And I think he will. I think he'll call an election. Because if he delays this for too long, waiting till October, let's say, that's 6 months where he'll have to come in front of the press and answer questions and talk about his real policies, other policies other than just the Trump tariffs. And I think on that he'll flounder. So he'll call it an election. That's my bet.
What do you think?
Well, I don't think he can hang on to this for too much longer, because the longer he hangs on to it, the more fuel that Pierre Poilievre will have in debates and just in campaigning against him. He did run on the promise of getting rid of the consumer carbon tax. Now he can do that day one as he's sworn in. The PMO doesn't have to go to the Parliament to request this. He can just make the carbon tax 0%. You can do that with a stroke of a pen. So this is going to be fodder for him going forward. He's probably his best bet would be go into an election. So he doesn't have much time as the prime minister at that. But we don't know. We don't know what he possibly could do. All I know is that Mark Carney, he was a busy guy with a lot of things on his plate. He didn't do this just to be prime minister for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And one last thought on this. I mean, if he doesn't call an election, he's going to have to sit in the gallery of the House of Commons. And so, I mean, months of that, of not being able to himself answer the questions from Pierre, I think that would be disastrous for him.
And this message is for the YouTube audience. We love the YouTube audience. Everybody, thank you so much for following our content and supporting us at Juno News. I'm going to ask for one thing. Please take a second to like this video. Every time someone likes the video, it helps expand our reach. We can reach more like-minded Canadians, Canadians just like yourself who care about the truth and have a bit of common sense. So like the video, leave us a comment, tell us your favorite part of the show, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you never miss an update. And if you want to watch full episodes of my show, The Candice Malcolm Show, head on over to junonews.com. We record the show live every morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and consider becoming a subscriber. Support independent news, support independent journalism. Thank you so much. Back to the episode. I think you're right. Like, I think that the more that Canadians see and learn about Mark Carney, the less appealing he is. Like, I don't know any Canadian that's sitting around like, do you know what we really need? A globalist banker who has all of this experience in like transnational corporations, moving companies out of Canada, investing in like our competitors, and opposing basically our main industry in Canada. Well, I think Carney also, as a retail politician, he doesn't really have a lot of experience. And the more that we see him out in the field and interacting with regular Canadians, the more out of place he seems. So he was in Hamilton yesterday at a steel plant, and he just looks silly. Like, this is totally like Mr. Dress Up 2.0. We can show some images. So the front row there are the liberal, like his liberal team, I guess, and they're all dressed up as if they are steelworkers. The steelworkers are behind them. But then when he's giving his speech, the steelworkers are gone, and those are all just Liberal MPs behind him, all dressing up, pretending, I guess, that they're blue-collar working Canadians. And his speech that he gave was sort of less than inspiring. He was umming and awing his way through. It kind of actually made Justin Trudeau seem articulate in comparison. We have a little clip of him speaking from Hamilton yesterday.
We are ready to sit down with the Americans, with the U.S. government. I'm ready to sit down with President Trump at the appropriate time under a position where there's respect for Canadian sovereignty.
So I don't know that he's a very clear communicator. I don't think he's had a lot of experience doing this. I mean, he's never been elected for anything ever. He's never been a member of parliament. And so he's not really tested. I think it's a huge risk for the Liberals to just like throw him into an election. But then on the other hand, I think that the media will cover for him. The media will paint him like a competent hand steering us through rocky times. And so he might not have to do that much.
Yes and no. I mean, one thing that's already happened just in the last 5 days since he was elected is the number of old clips of him that are showing up. They weren't showing up during the campaign because the Liberals weren't going to bring him up, and the Conservatives weren't actually bringing him up on purpose, I think. Now that he's the leader, now it's being unleashed. So old videos of him saying all sorts of things like, how he feels about the carbon tax, the true Carney. So that's coming out. As for that meeting yesterday, he purposely picked that steel mill because, again, some of his earlier comments on steel, like he literally made a comment about a month ago during the campaign that I'm gonna transfer the carbon tax away from consumers, put it on big producers. Somebody brought up steel, and then he said, well, people don't use steel anymore. So he was trying to backpedal that, and that's what we saw yesterday. And the other part of yesterday is he sneaks in and out. Like even the media can't get to him. They're still sheltering him from the media. They don't want him answering off the cuff questions because he has no answers, or he'll tell the truth, which is very problematic.
Yeah, I mean, we know what he really believes because he hasn't been shy about it. And like you're talking about how he was there are old clips circulating of him saying stuff. It's not like they're even that old. It's like things from a month ago or 2 months ago or 3 months ago where he's saying that we need a shadow carbon tax. So, he's saying let's get rid of the carbon tax because nobody likes it and it is divisive.
Well, we know how he feels. He wrote a 600-page book. And one of his values apparently is to be modest, but while being modest, he's touting his 600-page book. Like,
Right. And in there he talks about like the urgent need to implement all kinds of regulations and taxes in the economy to basically shut down fossil fuels, or at least like reduce our dependence on them. And so we know what he really believes. I think to me the question is whether or not the media is going to push this guy, whether we're going to have the true role of a media, which is to try to push the people in power, get the truth, help Canadians understand who he is, my concern is that the media is so in the bag for the Liberals, are so dependent on the taxpayer money that the Liberals have given them to sustain their industry, that they're not going to. It's going to be a walk in the park for Mark Carney. He's never going to be tested. He's not going to be chased and pressed to answer these sorts of questions. The media is just going to take at face value. Okay, he doesn't want to talk about carbon taxes. Let's not press him on that. Let's just move on to something else, focused more negatively on Pierre Poilievre. Clyde, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think Liberal voters, I mean, the Canadians are they're primed to vote Liberal. When we saw when ahead of Justin Trudeau stepping down, we had MPs coming to the news and saying, I have my constituents calling me up and saying, I love you. We want to have you as our MP, but if Justin Trudeau's the leader, we're not going to vote for you. We're going to switch to the Conservatives. As soon as Justin Trudeau stepped down, this is where I think the polling's coming from. I think it's people going back to sit with their Liberal MPs and be happy with that because Justin Trudeau's not the leader. Now, Mark Carney is not going to be any better than Justin Trudeau. He's more of the same. He's bringing in roughly the same cabinet. I mean, we got the announcement that Marco Mendicino is coming in, and same with David Lametti. So we are getting a Justin Trudeau 2.0. It's just they're masking it, and this is something that came up in our live stream last night. That we have Pierre Poilievre with Axe the Tax, and we have Mark Carney with Mask the Tax because he's bringing it in. He's just making it look like we don't have that by getting rid of the consumer side of it. It's going to be much bigger, actually.
Yeah,
Well,
like Clyde's referring to Liberals like Ken McDonald in Newfoundland, right? He said it 2-3 times. Like, my constituents want Trudeau to step down. They didn't say they don't want Liberals. They literally said they want Trudeau to step down. And let's face it, for the last 157 years, Liberals have been in power 70% of the time in this country. I mean, it is our tendency. We vote Liberal. So,
yeah, I mean, and that's sort of what the latest polls are showing. So I want to jump to the polls. Leger released a poll just over the weekend that found that the Liberals and the Conservatives are now tied at 37%. And I mean, this shows that the strong lead that Pierre Poilievre had just 2 months ago may be completely gone. The way that this is modeled out is even more terrifying because it shows a clear Liberal lead, possibly even a Liberal majority government. So it would result in the Liberals getting 176 seats, the Conservatives 137. And this is what the map of Canada would look like. You can see the Greater Toronto area almost entirely going back to the Liberals, Atlantic Canada, again, going back to being red and much more red even throughout the prairies. And so, I mean, this isn't some fringe polling company. This isn't Frank Graves putting up Liberal propaganda. Leger is the gold standard. They are considered the best pollsters in Canada. And so if this is the position that we now find ourselves in, I think it's a big, big problem and a major concern for the Conservatives.
It's a problem. It's similar to 2021. I mean, in 2021, we all thought we were facing an open net, and we couldn't, and the Conservatives couldn't do it because mostly of the mainstream media getting behind the Liberals. I just want to say one thing too. I agree that the Leger polls are pretty good, but the other thing, if you believe the election of the Carney's election results, they put them up on their website and you could go look at them. Carney won all the ridings, right? So when you voted in the Liberal leadership, your vote was still assigned to the riding where you lived. And he defeated Freeland and he defeated Gould and Bayliss in their own ridings. And so, so Liberals came out and they voted for change, and they're going to try and capitalize on that. So that's, for me, that's the most interesting thing that I want to look at tomorrow is who made it into Carney's cabinet and who didn't, because that's the tough navigation for him. That's another big factor we overlook. He does have 40 Liberal MPs who said they weren't running again, and then because of the leadership race, it did force partisanship within their group, right? Freeland's a big loser, and then Freeland had a solid 30 or 40 MPs who threw their name behind her, and then Carney had his camp. So he's got to navigate that, and I think he made a weird choice yesterday by choosing Marco Mendicino as his chief of staff to help him do that. But again, there's some really bad blood with Mendicino and the cabinet, so I think we're going to see a divided Liberal Party emerge from this thing. It's not going to be as united as we think, and that perhaps could be one reason why he might want to delay an election, because I think he's going to have a divided party.
Well, it's
Yeah, a lot of
funny
it, interesting day
because
tomorrow. Sorry.
when Trudeau stepped down on January 6th, he said that part of the reason that he was stepping down was because of these internal divides within his own party. But then if you looked at the Liberal leadership results that came out on Sunday evening, it didn't seem like a divided party at all. 85% of the people voting went for Carney. And I think that the
Not,
thing there is the fact that some 60% of Liberal members did not vote.
yeah, not a divided part.
Because they couldn't, but we don't know what happened to those 250,000
Yeah.
potential voters.
Not a divided party. You're right. So statistically, the membership voted for Carney, but call it a divided cabinet or a divided caucus. Call it a divided caucus because, like I said, a third of his caucus said they're not running again, and then the other 2/3 that are running again align behind Carney and Freeland. So he's got that problem to navigate.
Interesting. What do you think, Clyde?
Well, you look at their actual election. They were they were bragging about the fact that they got 400,000 new members, and somehow none of them turned up to vote except 150,000 people. A number of people were disqualified for what reason? A number of candidates were disqualified for what reasons? They weren't very forthcoming with all of this information. It doesn't seem like a fair election by any standard. So I think he was selected to be the leader of the Liberals, and I think there's some cynicism, and that's why the vote swung so far towards him.
Yeah, the election results. If you didn't know what had happened and you just look at the election results, it looks transparent. It looks one-sided. It looks unified. It looks all those things. And the more you look at it, the more it looks suspicious. The more it looks fabricated to make everybody think that Carney's the guy.